Hey everyone. I'm so glad that some of you are rejoining us from last week or coming brand new to this space with us. My name is Rachel Ward. My pronouns are they, them, and I am the minister and team lead for Gender and Sexuality Justice Ministries here at the national setting of the United Church of Christ. And today we're going to be in a soft space, an honest space, a gentle space of encouragement around this moment and have a conversation about what it means to thrive through moments of unjust and violent and harsh and hard moments that were taking place and unfolding in our country and across the world. Oftentimes we can focus on the protest that is necessary, the uplift of our voices and our bodies, which are necessary. But today I want to invite you into an awareness of where you are, how you're feeling, and to just be honest about where we are presently in this moment and what kind of practices we can take up or be reminded of maybe in this conversation that will help us thrive and not just survive, but to be able to access hope and joy and love and grace onward into the world. And I ask my friends that are with us on the back end to share. This webinar itself came into play or existence because of a statement that our team released at the beginning of the year around practices for thriving. And we really felt like it was a worthy conversation to have together. So I'm so glad you're here, whether you're watching live or you're watching later on YouTube. Thank you for sharing time and space with us. I'm really excited to be in this conversation because I love tenderness and all things soft and gentle, but also because I get to have this conversation today with a really, really, really dear friend of mine. So, Reverend Mira Swalini is a pastor, preacher, educator, and public theologian whose ministry is shaped by her decolonized approach to justice and advocacy. She's of Philippine and Indian heritage, born in Hong Kong and raised across cultures. She has served in diverse ministry settings from Australia to the US, including Forefront Church NYC, Peace Fellowship Church in DC, and Middle Collegiate Church, and currently the Riverside Church in New York City. Her journey as the mother of three girls has fueled her desire to bring about social change for their futures and to bring realization that God's kingdom is here on earth for all of us to experience. I'm so glad that you're here today and that we could be in this conversation together, friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this invitation. We haven't connected in so long, so to be able to connect and just share stories and wisdom with one another is just such a joy.
Absolutely. It's a joy to be in friendships with others, and especially it's a beauty of uplifting that relationships and community as possible outside of the spaces that you live. We've known each other since Middle Collegiate Church, which is in New York City, and I am in Georgia. So community building is possible even if you're not in the same space and place. So I want to uplift that too, because I think that matters. Um, let's frame our conversation and we're talking here about thriving through unjust moments. And I spoke to a little bit of we think about unjust moments and protest and signs and raising our voices, which is critical and important, but there are all kinds of ways that we can thrive through unjust moments outside of that kind of advocacy. I feel like in my own queer body, sometimes we can confuse or conflate suffering for thriving. And So I think it would be helpful for those who are gathered with us and for us to kind of rest into what does thriving mean to you in this time, and how are you pursuing thriving in the midst of this moment?
Yeah, thank you for that great question. I do often think about like, what does it mean to thrive? And quite simply, it's being able to live like everybody else. Quite simply, being able to experience growth and joy and rest, and even to be given space to grieve and lament freely without having to explain myself, without being told, like, this is the only space you're allowed to do that, or you can only say it in this way. To be able to contribute to life in this society meaningfully, to live unapologetically, permission to just be without explanation, just be. And in those, for me, those are the conditions for thriving, for my own personal thriving, and being aware of that. I think that awareness is really what's going to help me demand that of the people around me, and most importantly, of the systems of the world. That these are the conditions that I need, and thus these are the conditions our community needs to thrive. And the way that I've been able to thrive right now, you know, in a world where it's, especially in this nation, we've just, I don't know about you, but we've woken up every morning since January 20th with like a new executive order that's threatening our rights, our rights to just live and exist, to make decisions about our own bodies. We're battling against this, and it feels as though those optimal conditions to thrive are being taken from us. So our thriving is somewhat reliant on systems change to allow for those conditions. And when I was in DC, I did some justice work with local grassroots community organizers who are organizing around anti-gun violence. And while they were advocating and seeking justice from the government, from people in power, to demand the conditions they need to thrive, they also knew that that they didn't need to rely on the police for their own survival and for their own safety. So I learned this term, "We Keep Us Safe," from grassroots organizers in DC, and that has become a model for thriving for me. So I don't have to wait. Yes, I'm a minister of justice advocacy and change here at Riverside, oversee the mission and social justice department. And yes, I'm working with my community in partnership to demand justice for marginalized communities. But I don't have to wait for that to change, for those systems to change. I can build those, that cultivate a place for that now, cultivate the ripe conditions to thrive now. So I do that in community. I very intentionally and selectively place myself in communities where those conditions are reflected back to me. I also have to very intentionally remember the truths of what I deserve, what I'm worthy of in this world.
Yes.
These lies can seep in, right? And have you question who you are and what you deserve. So I have to, it's almost a daily practice to remind myself, oh, I'm human. I'm not, and not allow for the system to criminalize my very existence or criminalize my rights to live, which is a reality for trans folks right now. So if the system is doing this, yes, my allies and my community will fight for that, but I don't have to sit back and accept it. I can hold on to that truth that I have every right to live as I am unapologetically. So it's like threefold. I need to remember this for myself. I need to be in community where this is reflected, and I need to fight for a system that allows me to thrive.
Yeah. Mm. See, I'm so glad you're here, friend, because that was already a word. Which you
It's a
always,
challenge.
which you always bring, and it's the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth. And for you all who may see my hand or my arm disappear here, there's a dog. So uh my dog Jacket is in the stream with us today because he's wanting some extra pet. So just letting you all know what's going on. Um yes, yes. It's such a both and the thriving and institution and systems and what we need in order to be able to do mutual aid, to do resource, to do community. And also no, I am at a very unique point in like my own relationship to thriving in unjust moments where I'm asking a lot of questions about how to disrupt the indoctrination of institution and needing institutions of oppression and systems that oppress for a more holistic, invitational community of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So do I subvert with the institution or do I subvert with the people? And for me right now, thriving has to be subverting with the people.
Amen. Yeah,
And,
it has to be. Yeah. And I think we have to remember that because we don't have a relationship with institutions. Institutions will outlive us. As in the
yes.
building, even the very building I'm in, the name of Riverside, it will outlive me. But my relationships with people are what I have influence of
Mm-hmm.
and who have influence on me
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
About like it's those relationships that's the unique place that the divine creator has put us in.
Mm-hmm.
Be in relationship with one another to reflect back our worth with one another. And so in these, we especially in mainline churches are really great at fighting institutional injustice, systems of injustice. Really, they do that really well. What's difficult is sometimes mainline churches are not so great at the interpersonal stuff or
Mm-hmm.
the inward transformation stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to remember the church is the people. It's not the building. It's not the name of the institution. The temple is our bodies, and our bodies with one another build community. And we need to care, like the foundation of justice is care for one another, love for one another. And so I always say, like, it's the institutions want us to fight each other because divided, they stand to gain. The system
Mm-hmm.
of oppression can oppress us when we're fighting each other.
Mm-hmm.
But if we remember that we're part of one body, that my thriving is dependent on your thriving, and we work together, then we can overpower the systems of oppression.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, I think we need to really just pause and rest in this moment because I know, and I'm preaching to myself, is there's a tendency to panic right now.
Oh yeah.
Every morning to feel like there's so much dread. So it's doomsday. It feels like the world's going to end any minute now.
Mm-hmm.
And so we panic and we think we have to do something. There's this fire burning over here. There's this fire over here. We need to put all these fires out all at once. And then we divide because we think my fire is burning fiercer than yours. My
Mm-hmm.
fire is killing more people. No, my fire has to be put out now because it's about to spread and create even more havoc. And we spend more time and energy fighting each other than we do concretely and strategically looking at the fires all around us and going, hang on a second, There's a way to do this. Let's just take a breath. Let's take a moment. Let's listen to where the Spirit is guiding us, how the Spirit is leading us, because sometimes the intent in which we move comes from a very ego-driven, self-driven intent. And I find this so hard living in the United States when it's such an individualistic society. It's always about me, and my rights. But really, it's about our collective rights. We're so interconnected. If I only think about my rights, I'm not gonna survive, because our life is so dependent. Our living, our thriving is so dependent on one another. This is the system we live in. So we have no choice but to think about the thriving of others.
Yes, yes. See, I mean, I love my people, and I love the people that we all get to work alongside and that we get to be with. And so I'm just overjoyed that you're getting to share a word here with us today. Um, the it's true that there's a confusion and a separatist desire from systems of oppression, and you spoke to it, wanting survival to be the modality so that we fight amongst each other, as opposed to remembering, as the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, spends its entire portion of that Bible of the Bible saying it's about memory. It's about remembering who you are, the people that you are. Oppressive systems right now, in this moment of unjust that we're in, want us to forget who we are.
Right.
And the beauty of our faith and the beauty of the Creator I believe in, and even in this hard moment of leaning into our faith, it can be hard to lean into our faith in moments like this. I'll be honest. I love the initiative that we have. Love is louder, love your neighbor out loud. And I also know how hard that can be in moments like this, to love your neighbor well. When your neighbor may be the one who is saying things that are hurtful, doing things that are hurtful, moving in ways that are hurtful. But for example, I am a non-binary person. Every day I wake up fighting the modality of fear so that I can choose love every single day. And I choose that love first for myself, not because I'm selfish, but because scripture says to love yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So in order to love my neighbor, I need to love myself.
That's right.
And so the thriving for me in this unjust moment is ensuring that when I wake up in the morning, or I go throughout the day, which may be hard, and it is most days these days, that I am choosing to love myself unapologetically, boldly, prophetically, visibly, without demand. Because one of the things that we put out in that statement about thriving through together, the first thing that I named was release arguing for your humanity. Embrace your beloved self right now.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's lifelong work too, right?
It is.
Systems of oppression are generational, depending on the multiple identities that we hold. So those narratives are within you. We work through them every day. But if there's anything you hear from this webinar today, at least from my seat, you never are meant to argue for your humanity. You do not have to do that. That is not a part of the purpose of our uniqueness that God gives us in our Imago Dei, in our being. And it is not the way we thrive through unjust moments right now. If you're a trans person on this call, if you're a non-binary person, queer person, hear me say to you, there are co-conspirators and allies who want to do that work with you and for you. And we exist. And you don't always have to be the educator. The same goes for any other person identity situation. Thriving through unjust moments, thriving in general, is not arguing for your humanity. That's surviving. And God never said anything about us just surviving. And I feel like that is incredibly important for our ability to wake up every day and move through these uncertain moments, is to give ourselves the reminder and the memory that we hold in our body, in our spine, honestly, as people of faith, that we are intrinsically created to know that we are loved, that we are beloved. So waking up and having a practice of that, so that you can then go in turn do that for your neighbors, do that for your community, is so critical.
That's exactly right. This memory goes back to our conception too. From the moment we were conceived, from the moment we existed in the womb of our mothers. Psalm 139 says that we were fearfully and wonderfully made. Fearfully and wonderfully. That is the truth. We weren't made as to be erased. We weren't made to be illegal. No one gave us God did not call us alien the way that this country will call an immigrant alien. God would not, has never said that that we have to be understood by science to exist. God said, "You are my child. You are fearfully and wonderfully made." And we have to remember that. And it's like an undoing of the releasing of the lies to remember that about us. And we have to remind each other, and that's the tenderness we must have for one another, which means that that we allow ourselves rest, because that's what we deserve.
Yeah.
We allow ourselves permission to love and be loved. We allow ourselves joy, moments of joy. I think sometimes we feel guilty because there's so much suffering that we don't even allow ourselves to suffer. And my kids remind me of this all the time, because I will work all day tirelessly, and as an Asian woman, it's like drilled in me to be self-sacrificing, not just my work, but also as a mother. And my kids will remind me, like, you haven't had a conversation with me today. We haven't talked. Working, and then you went to cooking, and then you went to do your homework. And now it's 9 o'clock and I'm about to go to bed, but we haven't connected. And so my dear friend had sent me these like mindfulness cards. And I said, let's do a mindfulness card, and we'll just breathe together and do a guided meditation together. My kids will remind me to stop and pause. The weekend, I had 101 things that I could be doing. And my kids said they wanted to cook. I spent the whole day, and it meant going out to buy extra ingredients. I spent the whole day in the kitchen because that's what gives them life. And I found like, oh, actually, this embodied practice of just even measuring ingredients and mixing it together reminds me that I get to exist in this body, and nobody can take that away from me. Not right now. No one gets to take that away from me.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to tie myself down to a desk on my Sabbath just to make other people happy. No, I'm going to let my body exist the way that it wants to exist right now. And that's in the company of my beloved children. That's doing something with them, sharing space with them, and creating a memory with them. And I believe that to thrive, we need to be relentless about carving that out in our days and our weeks, that time with, whether it's with an individual, with the person you love, with chosen family, because the world and even progressive circles are going to tell you, gotta fight. There's no chance to rest right now. You've got to hit the streets, write your representatives. You got to do all this. But God says you also get to live and have joy and cry together and laugh. So do that too. You have to be relentless about carving out that time that's a right to exist as well, to do that for yourself.
Yeah. That it's so hard to rest. I, I
Oh,
I think that especially as some folks on the call we're on a call together, y'all. Even if this is a webinar, we're all on a call together. Some folks on this webinar may be in ministry themselves, whether that's in a traditional parish setting or some other form of ministry, and it feels like we can't uh, let up in holding presence for our people right now. And this is a reminder to myself, and or a reminder and an offering to others is, in order to be that mirror and model behavior for each other, we too have to do that. One of the most critical things that I kept getting told while I was in seminary from my mentor was that you're human first before you're anything else.
yeah.
You're human before you're a pastor. You're human before you're a lay person. You're human before you're, the justice advocate in the street or and at the Capitol. Like, you're human first.
Mhm.
And it is really important to remind yourself that you don't need permission to be human.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We had a couple of other questions, and we've kind of shifted into like a wider land of community here together. So this feels like a good moment to kind of cue that one up.
Mhm.
We've been talking about a little bit here too. Um, and I want to encourage those who are in the webinar chat, if you want to share answers along to these questions, we'd love to hear, to read along with what your thoughts and shares are. So if you want to share, what does thriving mean for you in this moment, or how you're pursuing that thriving, please let us know. The ways that we take care of each other is by sharing wisdom together. So please know that you're in this conversation with us too. Um, so in this space of uh, institutional power and violence, I think it's important to name things. This is a violent moment.
Mhm.
Um, where do we turn to remain grounded in community? How are you building a community at this moment, and how are you staying grounded within that community? Yeah.
Yeah, there's my three um, primary sources of communal care right now are from my AAPI faith leaders. I'm connected to a group of AAPI faith leaders, and just how they do this work, how they do faith-led justice work, faith-rooted justice work, how they take care of themselves, and the conversations we have living in this space as people who will also always be seen as outsiders. How do we demand and claim existence here in the United States? They're my people for that. And I also am very connected to other mothers from a former church I was a part of, where I was the children's family and children's minister, and we really support one another. And there's wisdom I learned from them, and in my own evolution as a person, my own growth as a person, I've also found the queer community to be an incredible source of support, um, because they've walked me through even liberation of my own sexuality and gender expression, to see that I can live and breathe more deeply and more freely when I'm not confined to what society says a woman needs to behave, or what spaces I must be confined to, and or how love is expressed does not have to be confined to binaries, but it can be expressed freely, and I've found freedom in that. I found liberation in that. So just I'm in some difficult transitional moments in my life personally, and I feel like there's always some of that happening in my professional world. And I remember from mothers that the moment before, I always compare like a moment of chaos to like giving birth. Because I'll tell you briefly the story of my firstborn, Maya. My labor with her was really short. And I had my dear friend, who was a doula for me, coach me through that labor. And I thank God for her, because the father of my child was not the most supportive in that moment. But having a doula, a woman there, was really, really helpful. And she was coaching me through, and it was very painful. And about 5 minutes before I was about to have Maya, I panicked and I thought, I can't do this anymore. They're going to need to cut this baby out of my body. And I kept thinking, how can I get out of this? How can I get out of this? I'm like, you're screwed. You're 9 months pregnant. You're lying on a table. There's no way out. You have to push this baby out. I'm like, there's so much pain. How am I going to do this? And not 5 minutes later, after a lot of blood, after some yelling and messiness, and the doctor barely made it into the room, she was born. And I forgot about it all. I forgot about it all, that I went through it again with my second child, and it was an even more difficult labor. But that has been a memory that I keep coming back to in every season of chaos I've been in. That the calming presence of my doula in that moment, I have to shout out to her, Maggie, my dear sister. In that moment, her calming presence reminded me that I can be in the midst of this storm, but she will never leave my side. She's going to help me through this. That it's going to be really grueling and messy and painful, but something beautiful is going to come out of it. And even my daughter, the way she's grown up, has taken me through a whirlwind adventure of ups and downs and roller coasters, but she has taught me so much. And I'm so grateful that I didn't try to escape just that 5 minutes before. I didn't say, get me out of this mess, God. Because had I not walked through that, I wouldn't get to really enjoy the fruit of what life is like with this human being. It's just so beautiful. It's the most sweetest tasting fruit of life that you can receive, to receive this kind of joy, to be part of this, to see your heart and soul in a whole other human being live and enjoy life all on their own, you know? And it's a reminder that that labor is real, that the difficult and hard parts of life are real. We never have to do it alone. And when we get through it, there's so much joy waiting for us. It's that, crossing the Red Sea and Miriam dancing and praising and playing the tambourine level of joy, and even bigger and beautiful than you can ever imagine. And so this is hard and painful, but I also just can't wait for where we'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 years from now, when we realize just how much stronger we are, when we get a truer sense of our own being and our worth, and see that of our siblings, how much beauty can come out of that. Like, I really look forward to that too, without denying that this shit is hard.
It is hard. It is hard. See, yeah, you're just preaching a lot of miniature homilies, and I'm so grateful. And thank you for sharing your labor story. Those matter too. I think the more we can destigmatize and normalize conversation around labor and the experience of birth, whether that's the birth of a child or the birth of a resurrection moment in our lives, so on and so on. But it's important to know that that there are real bodies at the forefront of these conversations and discussions around autonomy when it comes to labor and care of
Mhm.
of women and those who birth living beauties into the world. So
we're all experiencing a type of laboring. We're all experiencing that we're going through a labor pain because there's a becoming of who we are meant to be in this moment that is about to be birthed into this world. So we're all about to rebirth into a more, I think, authentic version of us. Should we choose that?
Yeah. I'm glad you uplift the choosing component. When I was thinking about this question about remaining grounded in community and how I am building community at this moment, I thought about Bell Hooks, who I often think about. And I thought about her comments on it's from First John chapter 4, it's verse 18, and she talks about this in her book All About Love, and she's talking about like the values of living into a love ethic. And so she's talking about this verse, which says, "There's no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not reached perfection in love." And Bell Hooks is talking about her confusion for a while about this concept of perfection, and how icky that word is. And being the scholar and the brilliant womanist that she keeps digging, and she realizes that the word perfect that's used in this verse is really talking to the kind of the descriptor of to refine, to continue refining. So to shift our body, our mind, our spirit toward an ethic of love where fear is not the oppressor or in power, because fear is, after all, or I think one of the most primary forces that like upholds structures of domination. It promotes the desire for separation, and Bell Hooks is saying in her book All About Love, that ain't it. When we're taught that safety lies always within sameness, then difference of any kind will appear as a threat. And that's exactly where we are right now in this moment of unjust movement, right? Everything that has difference appears, which is a critical word, like a threat. But, however, when we choose to love, when we choose to move against fear, against alienation and separation, the choice to love is a choice to connect. It's a choice to find ourselves in others. And this for me is like an essential view of community and practice. It's what I believe God hopes for us every day, is that we'll wake up and we'll choose love over fear, over hatred, over separatism, over institution, and over oppression. And when one of us in our community, our flock, however you think of it, maybe forgets in that day, doesn't have the power, the autonomy in that day to choose love the way that they want to, we in a community get to remind that person how. Get to show that person how. We get to take them to the end, per se, in the parable of the Good Samaritan, and allow them to get the rest they need so that they can wake up the next day and choose love. And for me, that is like the current practice, is waking up, reminding myself I'm beloved, waking up and trying really hard to choose love. And in the moments that I falter or need reminder, picking up my cell phone and reaching out to my people. And my core people who I know see me, they know me, they want to keep knowing me, because community is about growing with each other. And they'll remind me. And sometimes I have to use sentences like, I'm telling myself a story that this is true. And I need you to tell me that it's not. Or I just need a hug. I just need to hear, words of affirmation and love. We're really taught, especially in America in the individualism of the way this country operates. We're taught to think in self-sufficiency. And so sometimes that can ooze out of us as like, I can't ask for help. I can't ask for care. I can't tell someone that I'm not okay. And thriving, I believe, really does embody the lived reality of knowing when to say you're not okay and believing in the people that you're sharing that community with, that they're going to be there with you, and developing that muscle together is so important. Yeah.
Yeah, and it takes relationship. And if we're being told to be fearful of people who are not like us, how are we going to build relationship with one another? And this is something that I've learned from the queer community. Queer, just as a term itself, embraces such a diverse set of identities and is one of the most diverse communities that live within the margins. Queer as an umbrella embraces everybody, regardless of how you identify, and asks you to be curious instead of fearful. And in the friendships that I've made in queer communities, as I've explored my own sexuality, it's been through curiosity and playfulness. Let's play with this term, this label a little bit. Am I bi? Am I pan? Let's play with this today. How does that feel coming out of my mouth? How does it land? How does it feel in my body? Let's play with this. Let's be curious. And even in my friendships and the relationships I'm developing with people, it's not out of, because I think as a woman, I've been socialized to be afraid of being in relationships with people because I may get hurt. And so immediately go in with barriers. But living queerly is with openness and curiosity. And I like to use the term being careful, not care, because careful is assuming that there's something wrong, something bad's going to happen, something coming your way. But careful, approaching every conversation, every interaction with an abundance of love and care for one another. Which I think is an offering that I've learned from being in queer communities. It's full of intention, and let's walk together, hand in hand. Let's exercise compassion with one another, have vulnerable conversations, knowing they're gonna be messy because we're human. But with carefulness, not fearfulness.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, we just had a conversation last week in our webinar with our toolkit, Gender and Sexuality plus Our Faith, about, the expansive experiences within gender and sexuality. And, my uplift of my own queer identity is that, we want liberation and freedom, not just for ourselves, but for everybody. And so you're right on time with the description of, queer, to be living into a queer frame in your thinking and your actions and your emotions is to liberate yourself from, I have to do this or that, or be this or that, or act this way, or it's allowing you the space to play, to be in a playfulness with the inner child of yourself, and with the love of a God who is, I will be who I will be, meaning that we also will be who we will be, and are always becoming, always in bloom being. And, ultimately at the end of the day, like, I want us to be free. In order for us to be free, we have to get free together.
That's right.
So I'm so happy, friend, that you're finding and new navigations and communities, and being able to continue to grow and learn and embrace all of who you are. I hope that for everybody along their journey. Yeah.
It is a journey. I know I'm birthing a new me, and I'm gonna keep birthing a new me with every season. and I'm excited for all of them.
Mm, I'm so excited for you too, and I'm excited to keep hearing about it. Um, I this like third question that we're moving into and kind of slowing down our time together um, is about ancestors or elders, because some of you, if you've been with me before on webinar, you know that I really believe in being in relationship with those who came before and those who are going to come after us in our time. And I'm curious about, what ancestors or elders you're calling on for support or learning from for such a time as this that we're in.
Yeah, so I took that really literally.
I love that.
Yeah, because I did, and I thought I took it really literally, and I also grieved for a moment because my dad's side of my family are from the province of Sindh in India, pre-partition. And so I don't know, I know the names of my grandparents, but I don't know the names of my great-grandparents and so on. I know a little bit of information about them, but my dad, during the exile of Sindhi Hindus during the partition, he lost everything. He and his mother lost everything and was so traumatized by that event that he shared very little information about his family. So there was a moment where I grieved that. And then I thought about my mother's side, and how even colonization has robbed them of a history. So I was like, well, I can remember my grandmother, quite honestly, and my grandmother is an ancestor I look to for support and learn from, because she raised 6 children. She was a single mother of 6 children. 5 survived. She lost one at a young age. And she was a rice farmer in rural Philippines. And she always found a way out of no way for her children, for herself. And she lived well into her 70s. And she had such a special relationship with the land. So my other ancestor is the land. The land and natural life, being in tune with how the land and natural world responds to the changing seasons, and how nature moves through seasons so effortlessly, trusting that the universe, the creator, will carry them through, is an inspiration to me. You don't see a tree freak out. You just don't. And I'm calling on Howard Thurman as I think about this, but Howard Thurman often reflected on the lives of trees and talked about how a root will bend and conform and move just to find a source of life. And so that's all I've been called to do, to bend and move and meander until I find sources of life, every drop of water in the soil. So I find I find that the earth, the land, teaches me that. And finally, my dad. My dad, a Hindu Indian man, Sindhi man, who was more spiritual than he was religious, taught me first, before any Christian, taught me first about seeking and connecting with the divine within me, and seeking and connecting with the divine within another. He was the one who taught me that from a young age, that's all you need to do. Recognize the divine in yourself and the divine in another. So between that and meandering through sources of life, and my grandmother finding a way out of no way, they are all my sources of inspiration and learning, and people I lean on in these moments. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. The imagery of the tree is so profound and so beautiful.
Yeah.
Anthony in the chat is saying, and this is why the excitement of the approaching gardening season brings me such thriving joy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much. And you know, the nature calls us to be messy. Like gardening is messy work. You're gonna find dirt under your nails and everything, but dirt is where life began, where our bodies came from dirt, you know,
Yes.
and to dirt we go back to. So what way to connect with kin than to like dig your hands into the earth?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Um, I I was in the mountains this weekend with my community, my like beloved close queer community. Um, and one of my friends' kids, he's 4, and he asked all the questions, right? We're on this hike, and it's one of those hikes where there's a road carving around the mountain, and so it kind of slopes, and there's a tree right there where the slope goes down, and he just stops and looks at it, and he asks me how the tree remains there and doesn't fall down. And I was like, that's a really smart question. And so I answered it, and we talked about it. But in this moment, you offered that reminder about how repairmen in trees, the tree's resiliency to know who it is, what it is, its purpose,
Yeah.
keeps it on the side of a mountain when the soil is eroding away. And
Yeah.
the roots do all kinds of funky maneuvers in order to stay
Yeah.
in place. And the moss helps, and the rocks help, and the
Yeah.
support helps. And so, as we're thinking, and hopefully those who are with us will keep ruminating on what thriving means for you in this moment. Who are your rocks?
Mm.
What roots need rerouting?
Yeah.
Um, what soil might need to be turned over?
Yeah.
Um, who might need to go on the hike with you so that you don't get lost or feel alone? Um, who are those ancestors who have instilled wisdom into you, who have built you up and provided a foundation for you to keep growing? Um, my grandmother is also one of the profound spirits that moves in my life that I keep with me. Her name is Martha, and Martha was a hoot and loved plants and birds and talking and telling stories. And if you know me, I love all those things. But she also instilled in me that God never leaves you, and
Mhm.
I'll never leave you, and your people
Yeah.
will never leave you.
Yeah.
Um, and I believe so deeply in that because of her example and the community she built around her and the community I build and we build. So even in our small communities, those communities still find a way to ripple effect and connect to each other.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And I'll offer this one thing, that's also wisdom learned from trees, is trees survive in an ecosystem, in a community. And there are several trees that survive in tree colonies. Trees also know when to withdraw nutrients from a tree, another tree that might be dying. And it's really important for us when we're thriving to know what ours is to hold and what we need to release. We don't need to hold and do it all. That's why we live in community.
Mm-hmm.
We have to, a part of just releasing, for me in this season, releasing heteronormativity, toxic femininity. Oh, relief. I'm like, oh my God. And releasing expectations, releasing perfectionism. Let it go. Let that shit go. Don't let it suck any more life out of you. So that's also a way we can lean into our thriving and communal thriving as well.
Yes, yes. I feel like we could just talk about botany for a while because it has a lot to offer. Um, One of the like really beautiful things about seeds in general, but if we're talking about trees and forests, um, seeds also know how to wait. They
Yeah.
can wait thousands of years, y'all, for the right moment to it to burst through from the soil. And,
Yeah.
and like sometimes those seeds wait for a signal from the soil that caresses the seed so it blooms.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a really also a wisdom offering, that this too can be a season of patience and waiting, and knowing that you also can't hold everything, not asked to hold everything, and to be with people and remember that we can help caress the bloom with each other too. What a joy it is to be in conversation with you.
Yeah, thank
I
you, Rachel.
I love you, friend. You're a beautiful human being, and I'm so glad for those who got to hear your wisdom in this space today, and who may be listening onward past this live recording here. Um, I want to remind everybody and ask for our friends on the back end to put into the chat. There is a webinar next week to kick off Women's History Month, where we'll be having intergenerational conversation about women being here, and how we're inspiring generations onward from this moment. And so I hope you'll come to that. It's March 4th, 3:30 again, and we'll be in conversation with women across the UCC of various experiences, so that we can really do deep listening and kick off this month, and really a year long, always considering and knowing that women are here. So that's our upcoming webinar. Is there anything you want to offer into this space before I close this out?
Our church does so many things. This is one thing I want to offer. We are going to host Reverend Munther Isaacs from Gaza, his book talk on Christ in the Rubble next month, March 30th. Just look out for it, or just look out for him, because he's speaking fiercely about Palestine and liberation in Gaza. So yeah, listen out for it. I mean, it's worth. Palestinians have been a source of inspiration for me too. Their relentless pursuit of joy, even in the midst of war, has been an incredible inspiration. So yeah, please
Yes.
look out for that.
I'm so glad to learn of that conversation, and I want to ensure that people have a place to go on this chat before we leave. So what I'm going to do is copy it and paste so quickly into the everyone category here. This is the website for Riverside. So I'm sure that if you go there and look at their events, you'll find that talk. And this is another way that we get to be in community, is by sharing the resources we have with each other. That also matters so much. Thank you, friends, for being with me today. And thank you for our friends, Andrea and Brooke in the background, who always are effortlessly supporting tech. We are sending so much love to wherever you are, whatever feeling you're having. Know that you are loved, and it is valid to be in the midst of this moment feeling so many things. And know that we are in this moment together, and that we can thrive through, and that we do belong in community with each other, and that God loves you so very much. Until next time, see you then.
Peace.
Peace.